Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hi everyone, this is Mallika Pathak from Veranda House, continuing with the course on gaseous state for the students of BSc Honours Chemistry and BSc with Chemistry. This is Module 2, Lecture 1 of the series. The academic expert of the course is Dr. Amrita T. Sheikh, and the recording is being done under the DTH Swayam Prabha project of the MHRD, New Delhi. Now, in the previous class, we talked about kinetic theory of gases. We also derived the kinetic gas equation. Then we used the kinetic gas equation to derive the experimental gas laws like Boyle's law, Charles' law, Graham's law of diffusion. So we talked about kinetic theory of gases, the theory which is used to explain the experimental gas laws. Now today, continuing with the course on gaseous state, we will talk about the difference between the ideal gases and the real gases. What are the deviations which we obtain from the ideal behavior in real gases? Using the concept of compressibility factor, we will look at the various other equations of state like van der Waals equation of state and other equations. We will try and derive van der Waals equation of state and see its applicability. Then we will use the van der Waals equation to derive what is called as Boyle's temperature. So with this, let us start the course on ideal and real gases. Now let us try and recall what is an ideal gas and how are real gases different from an ideal gas. So an ideal gas is one which obeys the gas laws or the gas equation over the entire range of temperature and pressure. Such a gas is hypothetical and it is assumed that the intermolecular forces are not present between the molecules of an ideal gas. Whereas in a real gas, these laws are followed only under certain specific conditions. That is when the force of attractions are practically negligible. We must remember here that the ideal behavior means that the gas molecules will not interact with each other. Only the kinetic energy is going to be present. So what is the ideal gas equation? PV is equal to nRT, where P is the pressure in atmosphere, V is the volume in liters, N is the number of moles, R is the universal gas constant, and T is the temperature in Kelvin. We must emphasize here that the ideal gas equation is valid for ideal gases only and under all conditions of temperature and pressure. So what are the characteristics of ideal gases? First, the product of pressure and volume at fixed temperature is constant according to the Boyle's law. The plot of PV against P at constant temperature is a straight line parallel to P axis. The molar volume of an ideal gas at HTP is 22.41 liters or decimeter cube. The coefficient of expansion of volume of an ideal gas is 1 upon 273, and at minus 273 degrees centigrade the volume should become 0. The compressibility factor, we are going to talk about this term later. Z is equal to PV upon nRT is unity, and that no change in temperature will occur when ideal gas expands in vacuum because there are no intermolecular forces between the molecules, that is dE is equal to 0. So with this, we have recalled what are ideal gases. Please understand, ideal gases are those which are following all the gas laws under all conditions of temperature and pressure. So all the graphs that were valid for ideal gases should be followed completely under all conditions of temperature and pressure. So what are real gases? The real gases are those which obey the ideal gas equation at low pressures and high temperatures, and they show considerable deviations otherwise. And you must remember that the room temperature is also considered to be a high temperature. So what are the deviations and when are the deviations seen? The deviations from the ideal gas equations are particularly important at high pressures and low temperatures because Under these conditions, the interaction between the gas molecules or the intermolecular forces of attraction or repulsion between the gas molecules become considerable. So, this deviation is occurring because of those interactions or the intermolecular forces that are existing between the molecules under the conditions of high pressure and low temperature. So this actually introduces the concept of potential energy into the picture. Let's try and see how it happens. So the real gases are different from ideal gases in that there are interactions between the molecules in the gas phase, whereas in the ideal gases there are no intermolecular forces of interaction. So what are the forces? You could have repulsive forces and you could have attractive forces. The repulsive forces become important when the molecules are close together, are nearly in contact, that is at high pressure. So gases at high pressure become less compressible because the molecules are closer together. So you have molecules which are closer together. So if they are closer together, then you cannot compress them any further because these are rigid in nature. So you cannot compress them anymore. So the repulsive forces are there and the molecules are close, and so forth the gases have become less compressible. So the repulsive forces will come into play when the molecules are very close, that is at high pressure. What happens at long range distances? When the distances are far apart, then the molecules tend to attract each other. So there are attractive forces which come into play. So when the molecules are far, the attractive forces will dominate. So moderate pressures are those conditions under which the attractive forces will dominate, and because the molecules are far away, they can be compressed and brought closer together. And this concept is understood in terms of potential energy versus internuclear distance graph. So when the internuclear distance is large, the attractive forces dominate, and when the internuclear distance r is small, then the repulsive forces dominate. So at low pressure, neither repulsive nor attractive forces will dominate. When the pressure is low, the molecules are fairly far apart, then neither are the attractive forces dominating nor are the repulsive forces dominating, and therefore we observe ideal behavior. So real gases will behave only ideally in the case when they have low pressure and high temperature, when the molecules, that means, are very far apart. So the deviations from the ideal behavior can be understood or illustrated in a better manner by plotting a graph of P versus volume or PV versus P at constant temperature. So when these graphs are plotted, P versus V or PV versus P or Z versus P, then we get an understanding of how ideal gases are differing from the real gases. Now, because these graphs are being plotted at constant temperature, these are also called as isotherm. Let's look at each of these to understand the deviation from ideal behavior. To understand the extent of deviation of a real gas from an ideal gas, we can plot two graphs, P versus V or PV versus P. Let us first see the P versus V graph. The P versus V graph is given here. The curve for a real gas is shown with a red line. The curve for a real gas is shown with a blue line. And what you see is that at low pressure, these are very close to each other. But at high pressure, they are very much separated from each other. So what we have understood is that at low pressure, the real gases are also behaving like ideal gases because the intermolecular forces of attraction or the repulsion between the real gases become negligible and they start to imitate the ideality. But at high pressure, there is a huge or a considerable deviation from an ideal gas behavior in a real gas. Now let us plot a graph of PV versus P. These both graphs we have studied in detail while we were doing the Boyle's law. The PV versus P graph is a straight line parallel to the P axis for an ideal gas, but for the other gases, the real gases, there are considerable deviations. So hydrogen and helium are ever increasing. For CO, it is a dip followed by an increase. For methane, it is further a dip and followed by an increase. So let's discuss this graph, PV versus P graph, in detail in the next slide. Now, for most gases, with the increase in pressure, the value of PV first decreases. Just see, the value of PV first decreases. The value of PV first decreases, then passes through a minimum and then increases. With the rise in temperature, just see T1, T2, T3, the dip in the curve becomes shallower. So T1 is lower than T2, so the dip is more. When the T2 is there, then the dip is less. And with T3, there is no dip. So when you increase the temperature, the dip in the curve becomes shallower and shallower. And as you increase the temperature, the PV versus P curve becomes horizontal. So initially there is a huge dip, then the dip becomes smaller, and then finally it has become almost parallel to the P axis. In fact, at a certain temperature, the slope of the PV versus P curve becomes zero, and that temperature is known as the Boyle's temperature. That is, del PV at T equal to TB by del P is equal to 0 at the Boyle's temperature. Now, to understand the extent of deviation from ideality of a real gas, we are introducing a new term called as compressibility factor. Let us try and define it. The compressibility factor is defined as the ratio of the observed molar volume of a gas to the ideal molar volume as a function of pressure at constant temperature. That is, Z is equal to Vm upon Vm ideal or PV by RT. Here Vm is equal to V by N. I am repeating, it is the ratio of the molar volume of a gas to the ideal molar volume as a function of pressure at constant temperature. And this is the kind of graph that we obtain. Now let us look at this graph in detail. For an ideal gas, this plot of Z versus P is a horizontal line with an intercept equal to 1 on the Z axis. Now, the real gases, on the other hand, show different behavior. So, you have here hydrogen, helium, which are ever increasing over 1. You have nitrogen, methane, and carbon dioxide, which show a dip. So, the real gases but behave ideally at high temperature and low pressure. Now, what are the reasons for the deviation from ideality? The reasons for deviation are that first, in the kinetic theory of gases, we had assumed that the actual volume of the molecules of the gas is negligible compared to the total volume occupied by the gas. So, if I am talking about any gas under normal conditions, then the volume that the gas is occupying is very large, whereas if I put all the molecules of the gas closer together, then the volume is very small in comparison to the volume occupied. That is, it is negligible. But if I compress the gas, that is, now it occupies less volume, then the volume that the molecules of the gas are showing when they are put together is considerable as compared to the volume occupied. So then we cannot ignore it. So then we observe a deviation from ideality. Another thing is that we are assuming in the kinetic theory of gases that there are no intermolecular forces, whereas in a real gases there are intermolecular interactions and they are quite important in nature. So we see there is a deviation from ideality because of our two assumptions that we had made about the ideal gas. Now when you see this graph, the compressibility factor in fact is showing the deviation from ideality. So you have ideal gas, which is PV versus P, Z versus P is a straight line parallel to the P axis, whereas for the others there is a dip and then increase, but for hydrogen and helium it is ever increasing. So let's see. Now if I talk about the pressure or the influence of the attractive or the repulsive forces, we see that Z is equal to 1 for ideal behavior, Z is less than 1 when the attractive forces dominate for moderate pressure. So you must understand there are certain gases which are called as liquefiable gases. The gases which can be liquefied are those which have considerable attractive forces, and when there are considerable attractive forces, then the Z will be less than 1. There is going to be a dip. Now when the repulsive forces come into play, that is the intermolecular forces of repulsion are there, or the molecules are so close that the repulsive forces have started to dominate, then this value is more than 1, and this happens at high pressure. So the values of Z are more than 1 when the repulsive forces dominate or when the pressure is high. So what is the effect of pressure? I did talk about the internuclear distance in a previous slide, but let's look at this once again. So this is a potential energy versus internuclear distance graph, and we are going to talk about the effect of pressure. When the pressure is very high, that is the internuclear distance R between the molecules is small, then the repulsion will become important. When the repulsion is important, the gases are difficult to compress. So you have molecules are closer together, there is high pressure, and because they are closer together, therefore repulsions are dominating, and therefore your value of Z is going to be more than 1. But when the pressures are low, internuclear distance is large and the intermolecular forces are negligible, so the gas will act close to ideality and Z will be approximately equal to 1. Whereas at intermediate pressures, the attractive forces are the important ones, and therefore Z is always very much less than 1. Now let us look at this graph. This is a graph of potential energy versus internuclear distance. So on the x-axis you have internuclear distance, and on the y-axis you have potential energy. Now just remember your formula. F is equal to K Q1 Q2 upon R square, the Coulombic force. You remember, when you have attractive forces, then those are negative, the repulsive forces are positive. The attractive forces decrease the energy and the repulsive forces increase the energy. So let's look at it from that point of view. When the molecules are far apart, so this is the internuclear distance, that is the distance between the molecules. When the molecules are far apart, then the internuclear distance is large and the attractive forces dominate, and the attractive forces have a negative effect, that is they decrease the energy. So the energy starts decreasing because the attractive forces are dominant. After it reaches an internuclear distance, the best possible distance, if you bring molecules even closer, they will start experiencing very, very large repulsive forces. And you know again from the formula F is equal to K Q1 Q2 upon R square, that the value of repulsive forces are positive. So your energy will start increasing. In fact, it will increase at a very high rate because you're trying to bring molecules which are already at the equilibrium distance closer together. So they will start experiencing repulsive forces and they are just going to push each other, and therefore the energy will increase at a very, very high rate till they are completely in contact with each other. And when this is happening, you must remember your Z values will be changing. So when the pressure is very high, the repulsive forces are so dominant that Z is greater than 1. When the pressure is low and the intermolecular forces and the repulsive forces are not there, then the Z is approximately equal to 1. But at the intermediate pressure where the attractive forces are dominant, Z will be less than 1. Now let us see the effect of temperature on the Z versus P graph. Now from the graph, it is observed that the deviation from the ideal behavior is quite large at low temperatures. So look at the temperatures 223, 273, 323, 373. Please, I must tell you that these are all isotherms because they've been plotted at fixed temperature of Z versus P. So what you see is that the deviation from ideal behavior is quite large at low temperature. So when the temperature is low, the deviations are high. So the 223 Kelvin is the low temperature. So you see a very large dip and very large increase. But as the temperature is increased, you have gone from 223 to 273 and then gone to 323 and then gone to 373. The dip in the curve becomes less. When the temperature was 223, the deviation was very large. When you increase the temperature to 273, the dip has decreased. Again you increase the temperature to 323, the dip has further decreased and the deviation has further. And at 373, it has become ever increasing. So what is happening is, as you are increasing the temperature, the dip in the curve becomes less and less. In fact, what we are saying here is that deviation goes on decreasing as the temperature is increasing. However, at a certain temperature, the value of Z remains close to 1 over an appreciable range of pressure, and the gas is showing ideal behavior. This temperature at which a real gas behaves like an ideal gas over an appreciable range of pressure is called as Boyle's temperature. So these are all isotherms. These are all isotherms for one gas, but there must be one temperature, any of these, or there must be some temperature at which the real gas is behaving like an ideal gas over an appreciable pressure range, and that is called as the Boyle's temperature or the Boyle's point, because at this temperature Boyle's law is obeyed over an appreciable pressure range. So among all these temperatures or some more temperatures, there must be one temperature at which the real gas is following the ideal gas behavior for a very long time, and that temperature is called as the Boyle's temperature or the Boyle's point. Now let's talk about van der Waals equation of state for real gases. A number of equations of state have been suggested to describe the PVT relationship in real gases. One of the first and the best known attempts has been made by van der Waals, and we are going to talk about the van der Waals equation of state. Now we know that van der Waals equation represents one of the earliest attempts to explain the behavior of gases. He attributed the deviations of real gases from the ideal behavior to the two erroneous postulates of the kinetic theory. The first postulate that he pointed out, which was incorrect, was that the actual volume of the molecules is negligible compared to the total volume of the gas. And the second he pointed out, that which he felt was incorrect, was that there are no intermolecular forces between the gas molecule. He suggested that the volume of the gas molecules is not negligible and that we should make corrections for the volume occupied by the gas. Secondly, he said that there are intermolecular forces of attraction, as a result of which the pressure felt does not represent the correct pressure of the gas, and so the pressure factor also needs to be corrected. And if this is our ideal gas equation, then we need to make corrections in the P and V. And if P corrected and V corrected are the corrected pressures and volumes in the equation, then after introducing the corrections, our equation of state will become P plus AN square by V square. V minus NB is equal to nRT. So this P after correction has become P plus AN square by V square. V has become V minus NB. Here small a and small b are called as the van der Waals constants, and this A accounts for the interaction between the atoms and B accounts for the volume occupied by the atom. So they are the corrections that are made in the ideal gas equation. Now, was he correct? Obviously he was correct. That is why this equation has a lot of validity, because there are evidences which support that the molecular volume is there, the molecular attractions are there. Let us look at the first evidence, and that is the evidence for molecular volume. The molecules of a gas occupy a certain volume, as can be seen from the fact that the gases can be liquefied and solidified at low temperatures and high pressure. When you decrease the temperature of the gas, the thermal energy of the molecules will decrease. And what is the effect of applying this high pressure? When you apply this high pressure, the molecules will come closer to one another, thereby increasing the forces of attraction between them. Now, both of these factors favor liquefaction and solidification. In the solid state, however, what you feel is that there is a resistance to any attempt at compression. Why? Because solid molecules are already closer together and the forces of attractions are large, and therefore they were closer together, so you couldn't compress any further. So that is the evidence for the molecular volume. Now, what is the evidence for the molecular attraction? The molecules have weak forces of attraction among themselves. Otherwise, how would you be able to liquefy them or solidify them? This is also supported from the fact that when you allow a compressed gas to pass through a porous plug of silk cotton in adiabatic conditions, you find that the emerging gas is found to be cooler than the entering gas. This has happened because when the expansion is taking place, the molecules have to overcome the internal forces of attraction, and that requires energy, and therefore the energy of the system decreases and the cooling takes place. So van der Waals assumptions that there were molecular attractions and there was molecular volume were correct. Now, and therefore his equation has been valid for a very, very long time. Now let us try and derive the van der Waals equation of state. Just to emphasize here that van der Waals thought that two postulates of kinetic theory were incorrect, and those two postulates were the actual volumes of the molecules is negligible compared to the total volume of the gas, and that there are no intermolecular forces of attraction between the gas molecule. Now he suggested that the volume of gas molecules is not negligible, so therefore the volume occupied by the gas needs to be corrected. He also felt that there are intermolecular forces of attraction, as a result of which the pressure felt does not represent the correct pressure of the gas, and so the pressure factor also needs to be corrected. So if P corrected and V corrected denote the corrected pressure and the corrected volume, the gas equation will take the form P corrected into V corrected is equal to nRT. Now let us try and find out the values of the V corrected and the P corrected. This V corrected and P corrected are the values of volume and pressure that van der Waals modified in the ideal gas equation to account for the two erroneous postulates of the kinetic theory of gases. So first let's take a look at the correction for volume. Now, because we have a finite volume of the gas molecules, so if we put the gas molecules together, some part of the container is inaccessible to the gas molecules. So if V is the volume of the container and B denotes the inaccessible volume or the excluded volume for 1 mole of the gas, then V corrected is equal to V minus B. Therefore, for n moles of the gas, this can also be written as V minus NB. So in the van der Waals equation, V has become V minus NB for the n moles and V minus B for the 1 mole of the gas. Here NB or B represent the volume occupied by the gas molecules. So NB represents the volume occupied by n moles of the gas molecules and B represents the volume occupied by 1 mole of the gas molecules. Here you must remember that the value of B that is found to be 4 times the actual volume of the gas molecules. So let us try and find out the expression for excluded volume. So if we consider the collision of two molecules, each of radius r, so we have two molecules A and B, and if we consider the collision of these two molecules, their radius being r, then the center of these are separated by a minimum distance of 2r. As a result of which, the center of one molecule cannot enter the sphere of radius 2r around the other molecule. I'm repeating, as a result, the center of one molecule cannot enter into a sphere of radius 2r around the other molecule. This space is not available to all the other molecules of the gas. In other words, this is the excluded volume. This is the excluded volume per pair of molecules. So what have we said? We have two molecules, each of radius r, because we have assumed, we know that according to kinetic theory of gases, all the molecules are identical. So if there are two molecules of radius 2r, and then the distance between the centers is 2r. Now the center of this molecule cannot enter into this area. So the center of one molecule cannot enter into a sphere of radius 2r around the other molecule. This space is not available to all the other molecules of the gas. In other words, this is the excluded volume per pair of molecules. Now let us find out the value of this excluded volume. So the excluded volume per pair of molecules is equal to 4 by 3 pi into 2r whole cube. Right? 4 by 3 pi 2r whole cube. We know volume of the sphere is 4 by 3 pi r cube. So r here is 2r. So the excluded volume per pair of molecules is 4 by 3 pi 2r cube. This can also be written as 8 into 4 by 3 pi r cube. Now what will be the excluded volume per molecule? Obviously half. This is per pair. So for per molecule it will be 1 by 2 into 8 into 4 by 3 pi r cube. So this becomes 4 into 4 by 3 pi r cube. And what is 4 by 3 pi r cube? It is a volume occupied by one molecule. So the excluded volume per molecule is equal to the 4 into volume occupied by a molecule. Here B represented the excluded volume per mole of the gas. So B is equal to Na into 4 by 3 pi r cube. Right? So for 1 mole, Avogadro number into the volume per molecule, and the volume, excluded volume per molecule is 4 into 4 by 3 pi r cube. So B is equal to Na into 4 by 3 pi r cube. Correction for pressure. In the presence of intermolecular forces of attraction, the net force on a gas molecule in the interior of the container is 0 because it is attracted in all directions by equal forces. However, a molecule which is near the wall experiences a net inward pull due to the molecules in the bulk of the gas, and consequently it strikes the wall with less momentum than it would have in the absence of such forces. The measured pressure P is less than the ideal pressure by an amount P prime. So P corrected becomes equal to P plus P prime. Now what is the magnitude of this P prime? This P prime is proportional to the number of molecules which will strike the wall. So more is the pressure when more is the number of molecules striking the wall. And second, it is proportional to the number of molecules which are engaged in pulling the striking molecule. So the molecules which are pulling the striking molecules back are also affecting the value of the P prime. Now the number of molecules is proportional to what? The density of the gas, that is N by V. So P prime is proportional to N square by V square, or it is equal to AN square by V square, where A is a constant. So P corrected becomes equal to P plus AN square by V square. Our V corrected was V minus NB, and our P corrected is P plus AN square by V square. Here the AN square by V square factor represent the effect on pressure due to the intermolecular attraction or the repulsion. So our van der Waals equation has now become P plus AN square by V square due to the P corrected and V minus NB due to the V corrected, and this is equal to nRT. So this is the correction. This is the correction for intermolecular attraction, and NB is the correction for the molecular volume. In the van der Waals equation, these small a and small b are called as the van der Waals constant, and their values depend on the nature of the gas. These are characteristics of the gases that we are talking about. The values of these constants are determined experimentally for each individual Now let us talk about the significance of the van der Waals constants. What are the van der Waals constants? A and B. The van der Waals constant A describes the strength of intermolecular attraction. It is greater for easily liquefiable gases than those for the so-called permanent gases like hydrogen and helium. Its value will increase with the ease of liquefaction, which will increase with the intermolecular forces of attraction in the gas. You must note the units, which is liter square atm mole minus 2. The other van der Waals constant is B. It is related to the molecular volume. Therefore, it will increase with the increasing molecular size. The units are those of liter per mole. Now let us try and derive the units that we have mentioned in the previous slide, and we can use any of the units depending upon the other units that we are using in the equation. For this, let us just try and recall the concept of dimensions. We have, what is our van der Waals equation? P plus an square by v square, v minus nb is equal to nRT. Because P has been added with an square by v square, therefore an square by v square must have the same dimensions as the pressure. So an square by v square, which is the pressure correction, will have the same units as that of pressure. So A will have units which will be equal to P into v square by n square, because I've just said that an square by v square will have the same dimensions as P because they've been added together. So your A, you will have units P into v square upon n square. If we express P in atm, V in decimeter 6, decimeter cube, so V square becomes decimeter 6, N in moles, so N square becomes mole square. Then we will get atm decimeter 6 mole minus 2, or we can write it as liter square atm mole minus 2. If I want to talk about the SI units of A, let us express pressure in the SI units of Newton per meter square, volume in meter cube, so this becomes meter 6 upon mole square. So you get Newton meter 4 mole minus 2. Try and remember these units because it is very important. So Newton meter 4 mole minus 2 is the SI unit. You can also write it as Pascal meter 6 mole minus 2. Now let's talk about NB. Now NB will have the same units as V because it has been subtracted from the volume. So this is actually the value. So now B will have the units of V by N. Now what is V? That is equal to decimeter cube. N is equal to mole. So you get decimeter cube mole minus 1. Or you can write it as liter per mole or meter cube mole minus 1. So you must remember and try and use these units correctly. So now let's talk about the significance of the van der Waals constants once again. If there are two van der Waals gases which have the same value of B but different values of A, what will happen? Then the gas which has a larger value of A will occupy lesser volume. Why? Because the larger value of A means there are going to be larger forces of attraction, hence the distance between them are going to be small. What about the gases which have the same value of A but different values of B? Then the smaller the value of B, larger will be the compressibility, because that means the gas with the smaller value of B will occupy lesser volume and hence will be more compressible. So we must remember these two things. Now if I want to find out the value of pressure or volume from van der Waals equation, we just need to rearrange our van der Waals equation. If I want to find out the value of P, then just rearrange our van der Waals equation to get P is equal to nRT upon V minus NB minus an square by V square. So if you are given the volume, then you can get the value of P. If you want to find out the volume using the P values, then you will have to again rearrange to get the volume. But then it will become a cubic equation of the type Vm cube minus B plus RT by P Vm square plus A by P Vm minus AB by P equal to 0. So when you solve this, you should be able to get the value of volume for a given value of pressure. Now let us look at some problems for a better understanding of the van der Waals constants A and B. The first problem is you have to predict the relative magnitude of the van der Waals constant for the following gases. You have one hydrogen gas, the other is a sulfur dioxide gas. The hints are also given here. Hydrogen gas is very small and is not polar. Sulfur dioxide has larger atoms and is polar. So what would you predict about the magnitude of the A and B? Just think a little. You have 2 seconds. Right. So the van der Waals constants A and B would both be larger for sulfur dioxide gas. You must remember because it is more liquefiable, so A is more. The molecular volume is going to be more, so B is also going to be more. Let's take another look at another problem. Which gas would produce the lowest pressure with moles T and B being constant? Here we are given two gases, methane and water. So methane will have small molecules and is going to be non-polar, whereas water will have small molecules but it is going to be polar. So what would you predict about the A and B and the lowest pressure? Now if CH4 is a small molecule and is not polar, this means that the van der Waals constants A and B are both relatively very small, right? And the gas should behave close to ideal. What about water? Water is also a small molecule. Then the van der Waals constant B will be of similar size as that of methane. However, because it is polar, the van der Waals constant A will be quite large. Therefore, the pressure which will be exerted by water will find to be lower than the ideal pressure, because A is large, so the subtraction is more. So the pressure exerted by the water will be found to be lower than the ideal pressure. Now let's try and solve a numerical based on the van der Waals equation. We are given a numerical. Calculate the pressure exerted by 84 grams of ammonia in a 5-liter container at 200 degrees centigrade using the van der Waals equation. The van der Waals constants for ammonia are A is equal to 4.17 atm liter square mole minus 2 and B is given as 3.71 into 10 to the power minus 2 liter per mole. We have this as the van der Waals equation. We can rearrange to get the value of P. Let us find out the value of N. We are given 84 grams of ammonia, so it comes out to be 4.94 moles when we divide by 17 grams per mole. The temperature is 473 Kelvin because 200 degrees centigrade plus 273 gives you 473 Kelvin. So if I substitute into this equation, we will solve and get for P. So P will be N into R into T upon V minus N into B minus A into N square upon V square. So this, when you solve A into N square upon V square, you will get the value of P. So this comes out to be 35.74 atm. So similar numericals can be given to you to solve for P and V. We must just take a look. These are very easy numerical. We must just remember to substitute correctly while solving the numericals. Also, the value of R that you will be using, you must understand, should be compatible with the units of the other terms that are there in the equation. Applicability of the van der Waals equation. We are now in a position to discuss the deviation of real gases from the ideal behavior under the various conditions of temperature and pressure. Let us look at each of these conditions one by one. At low pressure, V is large and B can be ignored in comparison to Vm in the ideal gas equation. So the B is going to be ignored in comparison to Vm. So we are left with P plus A by Vm square. Vm is equal to RT. So which solves to give you PVm plus A by Vm is equal to RT, which can therefore be solved to give you Z is equal to 1 minus A by Vm RT. Now what happens is that in the low pressure region, because of this, Z is less than 1. When you increase the pressure in this region, the value of the term A by Vm RT increases, as V is inversely proportional to P. Consequently, you observe that Z decreases with increase of pressure, and therefore you see a dip in the Z versus P graph. what happens at high pressure? When the pressure is large, Vm will be small. And now you cannot ignore P in comparison to Vm. However, the term A by Vm square may be considered negligible in comparison to P. Because P was large, so A by Vm square can be neglected, but B cannot be ignored. Therefore, you have P Vm minus B is equal to RT, which can be rearranged to give you Z is equal to 1 plus PB by RT. Hence, Z is greater than 1 and will increase linearly with P at high pressure. So at low pressure there is going to be a dip, and that dip is going to be explained through the low pressure. At high pressure, the values of Z are going to be more than 1. Now what happens under the conditions of high temperature and low pressure? If the temperature is high, then Vm will also be sufficiently large, and thus the term A by Vm square is going to be negligible in comparison to P. At this stage, P may also be neglected in comparison to Vm. So this condition will result in an ideal gas equation. And we know already that under the conditions of high temperature and low pressure, our real gases follow the ideal gas equation, or the real gases behave ideally under the conditions of high temperature and low pressure. Let's discuss the case of hydrogen and helium. We saw that in the graph of Z versus P, the hydrogen and helium lines were ever increasing more than 1. Now let's try and discuss this case. The value of A is extremely small for these gases, and they are known as permanent gases, as they are difficult to liquefy. Thus we have the equation of state as P into Vm minus B is equal to RT. Now this means when we solve this, we find that Z is always greater than 1, and it will increase with increase of pressure. I am explaining once again. For hydrogen and helium, the value of A is small because they are difficult to liquefy. That means An square by V square can be neglected in comparison to P. So what we are left is PV M minus B is equal to RT. Hence Z is always greater than 1, and it increases with the increase of pressure. Now what are the limitations of the van der Waals equation? This equation has been found to be very satisfactory over a wide range of temperature and pressure. However, it shows appreciable deviations at too high pressures and too low temperatures. The reason is that the values of A and B vary with temperature. At too low temperature, the value of A is found to be about 80% of its original value. There is another point. For many gases, the value of RTC upon PCVC is not equal to 8 by 3, as has been derived by the van der Waals equation. We are going to talk about this point in the next video, but for now, just remember that the value of RTC upon PCVC is not found to be equal to 8 by 3. Now let us try and derive Boyle's temperature from the van der Waals equation. But what is Boyle's temperature? We have studied a little in the previous slide, but now let us try and do this completely. The Boyle's temperature is the temperature at which the gas obeys the Boyle's law, that is, the value of PV remains constant for an appreciable range of pressure from zero pressure. Mathematically, the Boyle's temperature may be defined as the temperature at which limit P tending to 0, del PV by del P is equal to 0. Now let us try and derive the Boyle's temperature from the van der Waals equation. The van der Waals equation for 1 mole may be written as PVM is equal to RTVM upon Vm minus B minus A upon Vm. Now let us divide the left and the right hand side by RT. Then we get PVM upon RT is equal to Vm upon Vm minus B minus A upon RT Vm. This can also be written as Vm upon Vm into 1 minus B by Vm. This happened because we have taken out Vm from the two terms, minus A upon RT Vm. Now when Vm and Vm cancels out, we are left with Pvm upon RT is equal to 1 minus B upon Vm to the power of 1 minus A upon RT Vm. Now this can be expanded. So at Boyle's temperature, Pvm upon RT is equal to 1 and Vm is much larger than B. That is, V is much greater than B. And therefore, the first term on the right hand side, that is 1 minus B upon Vm to the power of minus 1, can be expanded into a series with the retention of the first two terms. So we are left with Pvm upon RT is equal to 1 because it is the Boyle's temperature, and this is equal to 1 plus B upon Vm minus A upon RT B Vm, where TB is Boyle's temperature. Therefore, B upon Vm is equal to A upon RTB Vm, and therefore now we can get the value of TB. So TB, the Boyle's temperature, is now found out to be equal to A upon RB. We can find out the value of Boyle's temperature from the van der Waals gas equation using the property del PV by del P at constant T is equal to 0. Now let us try and do this. The van der Waals equation for the n moles of the gas may be written as P is equal to nRT upon V minus Nb minus n square A by V square. If we multiply throughout by V, we get PV is equal to nRT V upon V minus Nb minus n square A by V. Therefore, del PV by del P at constant T can be written as nRT upon V minus Nb minus nRTV upon V minus Nb square plus n square A by V square into del V by del P at constant T. What we have done is we have just differentiated this. Now we put this equal to 0 because we know for the Boyle's temperature this value del PV by del P at constant T is equal to 0. Now when this is equal to 0, we know that this term del V upon del P at constant T cannot be equal to 0 because it is always negative. Therefore, the quantity in the square brackets or the expression in the square brackets has to be equal to 0. So let us equate it to equal to 0. Then we get nRT upon V minus Nb minus nRT V upon V minus Nb square plus n square A by V square is equal to 0. Now when you solve this, you get that RT is equal to A by B, V minus Nb upon V to the power of 2. We divide the bracket term by V, we get A by B 1 minus Nb by V to the power of 2. Now because this is the Boyle's temperature, therefore RTB will be equal to A by B 1 minus Nb by V whole square. Therefore our TB will come out to be, that is the Boyle's temperature will come out to be A by RB 1 minus Nb by V to the power of 2. Now when P tends to 0, the volume will obviously be infinitely large. Therefore this term will tend to be 0, so can be neglected. So if this is tending to 0, therefore this value is almost equal to 1, and to the power of 2 it will still remain 1. So our TB is equal to A upon RB. Therefore by this method also we can get the value of Boyle's temperature from the van der Waals gas equation. Several equations of state have been proposed from time to time to account for the pressure, volume, temperature behavior of the real gases. A good equation of state should be able to express this behavior under the moderate ranges of pressure and temperature. What are the criteria how we accept what is a good equation of state? One, it should be simple. The other, it should have few adjustable constants and parameters. However, we have realized that if you want to account for the behavior of gases to a very large degree, there should be at least 2 or more constants or parameters. Some of these equations of state we are mentioning here, like Berthelot. The Berthelot equation is P plus n square A upon TV square into V minus Nb is equal to nRT. Here A and B are called the Berthelot's constant. there is Dietrich equation which was proposed in 1899, and it is written as P exponential Na upon VRT into V minus Np is equal to nRT. There is Clausius equation which we have not mentioned here, but one equation which is very general for a real gas is the virial equation of state, which is written like this: Z is equal to PVm upon RT is equal to 1 plus B into 1 by Vm plus C into 1 by Vm square plus D into 1 by Vm cube, and so on. This is a very general kind of equation of state for a real gases. So this can be rewritten as Vm into PVm upon RT minus 1 is equal to B plus C upon Vm, and so on. Here B and C and D are the temperature dependent constant, and they are known as the second, third, etc. virial coefficient. These coefficients are evaluated experimentally at each different temperature. Now, the second virial equation can be obtained from the experimental data also. How? If we rearrange our virial equation, Vm into PVm upon RT minus 1 is equal to B plus C upon Vm, and we plot a graph which is of Vm into PVm upon RT minus 1 versus 1 by Vm, then the intercept will give us the value of B, and the slope will be obtained which can give you the value of C. This is when there are other terms not available. But if there are further terms available like D, E, then the plot is found to be curved, and in that case C must be evaluated from the initial slope. Now, can we reduce a van der Waals equation to virial equation? Yes, we can. Let's try and do this reduction of van der Waals equation to the virial equation. Now, what is a van der Waals equation? P plus A by Vm square into Vm minus B is equal to RT. So, P is equal to RT upon Vm minus B minus A upon Vm square. If we multiply both sides by Vm by RT, we get PVm upon RT is equal to Vm upon Vm minus B minus A upon Vm RT. Now, what is PVm upon RT? That is Z. So, Z is equal to, if I divide numerator and denominator by Vm in this term, we get 1 minus B upon Vm to the power of minus 1 minus A upon Vm RT. Now, in a low pressure region, we know that Vm is large and B by Vm is very much less than 1. Therefore, the expression 1 minus B upon Vm to the power of minus 1 can be expanded into a power series in B by Vm. So, we can write 1 minus B upon Vm to the power of minus 1 can be written as 1 plus B upon Vm plus B upon Vm square plus B upon Vm whole cube. Therefore, Z can be written as 1 plus B minus A upon RT into 1 by Vm plus B upon Vm whole square. Now, if I compare it with the virial equation that we have studied, we find that our B is equal to B, the second virial coefficient is equal to B minus A upon RT. And our third virial coefficient C is equal to B square. Therefore, we have been able to reduce our van der Waals equation to the virial equation and get the values of the second and third virial coefficient. Now, with this, we have wound up our today's session. In the today's session, we have talked about the ideal gases and the real gases and their behavior. We have shown why there is a deviation of the real gases from the ideal behavior. We have understood this using the graphs of PV versus P, Z versus P, P versus V. So, we have talked about this deviation. We have introduced a new term called as compressibility factor. Then we have discussed the van der Waals equation of state for real gases, which is the first and the most prominent attempt to explain the behavior of real gases. We have tried to derive this equation and seen its applicability. Then we have used this equation to get the value of Boyle's temperature, and we have also looked at the other equations of state for real gases just qualitatively. So with this, we wind up the today's session. Thank you so much for your patient hearing. Stay at home, stay safe, stay healthy, take care of your parents. Bye bye.